Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at DC Comics Presents number 87. Before I jump into this, I just want to say thank you to all the people who have recently subscribed to my channel. And if you are new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. So this is a recent reacquisition. To my knowledge, this book is the first superhero book I ever got as a kid. Came out in 1985. That would have put me around 6 or 7 years old, depending on the month, roughly. It says November, so that would have been August. Good chance I was about 6. So before this, I'd gotten comics like G.I. Joe, Transformers, cartoon-related books. I obviously knew who Superman was. The Chris Reeve movies are ingrained in my childhood, especially this part of my childhood, just as much as anything like Star Wars or whatever. So because of that nostalgia, I'd kind of wanted to get this book again. Really, it only came to mind about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe, that I thought about it. Like, oh, I remember getting that Superman meets Superboy book. And I went to the internet to look for it. I found it pretty quick and discovered this is the first appearance of Superboy Prime. Superboy Prime would go on to be the main villain of, spoiler, Infinite Crisis. He would also be used through the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run too as one of the primary villains. He's not a villain in this book. But anyway, because this is the first appearance of Superboy Prime, it put this book at like some kind of crazy numbers when I went looking for it on eBay. So it was, not super duper expensive, but more than I really wanted to pay for the reasons that I wanted it. So I decided I would just wait. I was like, I might find one cheaper at like a comic shop or a show if I just kind of bide my time. And patience pays off. A comic shop I go to locally that really just deals in back issues had gotten a new collection in, and I was one of the first to get to dig through it. So when I hit this comic, it was one of those feelings you get like when you find that last issue to complete a run or a storyline or whatever that you're looking for. And it was like, oh my gosh, there it is. And that shop owner always gives me good deals, so I was, happy to bring it up there. And he did. He gave me a nice fair market price on it that was much less than what it still currently goes for on eBay. And it's in pretty good shape too. So some things that really stood out to me as a kid are, there's Superman and Superboy both on there, and then the two Earths. That's something that was like ingrained in my memory as a kid, seeing this cover, and I'm sure it's what attracted me to it. Also, this is 1985, so Back to the Future had been out, and I was really into that. So I assumed it was going to be like some sort of time travel story. He's meeting his younger self. What I didn't know, this is a Crisis tie-in, had no clue what that was at the time. And even like years later, when I did know what Crisis was, I still didn't put that together into this being a Crisis tie-in book. In fact, it being a title called DC Comics Presents never even occurred to me. I thought this was just a Superman comic. Or a Superman title, I guess I should say. So, like I was saying, it's not a time travel book. What it is so there's Earth Prime, which is a planet that is like the real world. There were no superheroes on it, and Superman had apparently been there before. And he was actually a fictional character on it. He was a comic book character in that world. But what's happening, this is picking up after the death of Supergirl. This is an awesome 2-page spread. We got Kurt Swan, classic Superman artist, with Al Williamson doing inks. So that's kind of a legendary art crew you got on there. It's written by Elliot S. Maggin, who I'm not really familiar with. If he did a bunch of DC stuff from this era, I wouldn't really know who he is. I love this opening page, though. Superman's mourning the loss of Supergirl, who had recently died in the Crisis main series. During his mourning, these aliens, who are part of something called the Superman Revenge Squad, take advantage of him being distracted and zap him with this ray, which sends him to another universe, which happens to be the universe of Earth Prime. And he doesn't realize it at first because he just kind of lands on the moon. But then when he starts going in, he notices some oddities with the Earth. And then he immediately recognizes, I was transported to Earth Prime, if I'm correct, where the last genuine superhero was Bobby Kennedy, and I'm a fictional character. And you got this man on the street like, look, up in the sky, it's gone. Then as he spots down, he's using his supervision, he spots down a young boy who happens to be named Clark Kent. And he's on the beach wearing a Superman costume because he was like at a costume party. And he just starts taking off and flying, much to his surprise and his girlfriend's surprise. And he keeps on going up into space, where he meets Superman. Superman, using his microscopic vision, like looks at him and is like, well, you are Kryptonian. This is really odd. There's not supposed to be any superheroes on Earth Prime. So they chit-chat, and he explains that, he's not from the right universe and stuff, and they both take it in stride. No slug out here. So basically Superman is saying like, look, you've discovered something about yourself that you need to do the right thing and figure out how to be a superhero. And then he's like, I got to get back to my universe. I'm off. And just at that moment, his buddies on the beach, there's his girlfriend returning to like their little friend group. They're on the beach, and a tidal wave starts coming in. So he comes down, and he doesn't really know what to do. So first he just tries to like use his heat vision to try to burn off the steam, and it's working in one spot but not really doing much. I mean, this wave looks like it's already about to hit him. When all of a sudden you got whoosh. The other Superman, or the real Superman, however you want to refer to him, shows back up, sucks up the tidal wave into a vortex, and then he explains to Superboy, like, now that it's up in this vortex, let's both hit it with our heat vision and vaporize it into steam, which creates a fog and eventually some rain. And then they're like, okay, well, let's go take off and have a good time again. Oh, and this is something too. 1985 is the year Halley's Comet was visible, so we see Halley's Comet going by Earth. And that was seen up here too. And I think the story is called The Year of the Comet. Like right there, you're seeing the comet. Superman and Superboy take off and have like a little lap around the moon and just, having a good time, really. They catch up to Halley's Comet, and in the vacuum of space, they can't talk to each other, so they start pulling off little pieces of the comet to write in the sky. Superboy asks, why did you come back? Superman, I couldn't break the dimension barrier to get home. Are you worried? A bit. So then they take off. They start heading back to Earth. Here's his parents, Clark's parents, whose names are Jerry and Naomi. So we don't have Jonathan and Martha. We have Jerry and Naomi Kent. So they're pretty much just kind of worried about where Clark's been. The girlfriend obviously saw him fly off, and hasn't seen him come back yet. When we do get back to Superman and Superboy, they see this alien ship flying down, and immediately Superboy is like, yo, we got to take off and stop this. They're clearly alien invaders. And Superman's like, no, they're from this Bejeebers. And this is like a tourist convoy. He's like, they go down and they just like basically have a vacation on Earth. And he's like, we need to go talk to your parents. And then he says, turnabout is fair play. The kid learns fast. So he goes down. He goes down to like just greet the aliens. So when he gets there and the aliens are like, whoa, there's not supposed to be any superpowered beings here. and they scan him and realize he's Kryptonian, and then they decide they're just going to kidnap him. So they zap him and I guess incapacitate him for a moment. Superman comes and sees him. I love how they do the supervision like this, like the circle, like this is like a magnifying glass, and they're using his cape like a stretcher to carry him. The Superboy's not really knocked out. He's got a little smirk on his face. I think he just wanted to hear what they were saying, and he immediately, flips over and knocks him out. And it was interesting here too when they said, when the aliens talk. As always, we offer a rough translation from the language of the natives of Polaris 6. Julie. That's Julie Schwartz. But then back over here, it just does the alien font. And it says, we decline to translate this particular panel. This is a family comic book. Again, Julie. So a little bit of humor going on there. They were about to attack Superboy again. Superman comes in with a little super breath. Superboy is pretty gung-ho to he tries to take off. That's right. Because he's kind of scared at this point, and he's like, all right, we stopped him. Let's get out of here. Or we've given ourselves an opening to get out of here. And Superman's like, whoa, hold on. You've got powers and responsibilities now that you have these powers. He's like, oh yeah, that's right. I just wasn't thinking. So kind of an interesting thing there where he just got these powers like a couple hours ago, and maybe even less than an hour ago. So his instinct is still like, I got to get out of here. So then they take off, and now he's having fun. He's getting blasted with stuff. It's not hurting. They go in here. Superman does his little spinny, twirly drill trick into this reactor thing. He says is their power source. There's nothing in it. Oh, they wanted to collect the world's nuclear arsenal or something. Is what the alien plan was. I don't know how they were going to do this in this one little sphere, but that was their goal. Maybe that was just going to take some of them. So Superman's having a hard time actually breaking it for some reason. I can't remember why it says he's having a hard time, but Superboy had no problem with it. Oh, because it was red sun energy. It was made with red sun energy, but it didn't bother Superboy. And yeah, as I read this now, I seem to remember in the Green Lantern run with Superboy Prime, I thought they kept him prisoner in a cell close to a red sun. But this is saying that the red sun energy doesn't affect him the way it does Superman. I don't know. I could be wrong about the Green Lantern story. It's been forever since I read that. It's funny, his costume shows that it's just a costume, and it has like rips and tears from shattering this glass or whatever on it. And he points out how it's not invulnerable like Superman's real costume. Then they both decide to just show up as Superman and Superboy to a crowd of people. And he's like, hey, Mom and Dad, guess what? I am Superman. I do have superpowers. There's like a cop, friends, neighbors, everybody there. But at the same time, Superman's like, hey, this thing called Crisis is going on, and I need your son's help. So they take off. They use the alien technology to build this machine that he thinks will get him back. And it's working. They do. They get to Metropolis, and he's like, whoa, the Daily Planet globe for real. And because he's read about it in comic books. But then I think it's the Superman Revenge Squad. They suck back up Superboy and send him back again. And then this Crisis story apparently continues in the main Superman title after that, which I've not read. I didn't read it then as a kid. I didn't even keep getting Superman until the Death of Superman storyline, and I was fully into comics at that point. But I didn't get any of this. I didn't stick with Superman. And when I got into comics, I would say a full-time comic collector, I did not get into Superman for years. Which I've always liked Superman. I mean, I'm not a Superman hater. I've got quite a soft spot for him, actually. But yeah, so I didn't follow up on any of that. The next story is essentially the origin of Superboy, and it's more or less the same as the origin of Superman. You've got Jor-El and Laura-El. The only difference is they don't use a rocket. They use like a transporter, like a dematerializer. So they're testing it here and it's not going well. Then Krypton starts, falling apart. I like the Kryptonian kayakers, canoers. They have a normal dog there. Looks pretty Earth-like. Ships crashing into each other. So now they test it with this random animal. He zaps it off, and she's like, "Where did it go? It's safe in a forest, light years away." So did they zap that thing to Earth? I don't know. That seems like it could have been a plot point if you wanted to do some Superboy stories after this. Then we meet the Kents, who are again Jerry and Naomi Kent, and she is actually a lawyer. They mention it in here. And they're talking about trying to have another baby, or trying again to have a baby. Obviously, they've not had success. Then back to Krypton. It's, everything's going downhill. They put the baby in the transmitter thing, transporter, beaming him essentially to Earth instead of shooting him in a rocket. This other scientist comes in through the window and he points out, like, most people still use the door even though the planet is falling apart. And he's like, what is that? Let me get in that. And he jumps in, and it's not programmed for him because the parents, Jor-El and Laura, were going to get in there themselves and transport themselves to be with baby Kal-El. But this guy storms in and interrupts it, and he jumps in, messes with some controls, and of course it just like crashes the whole machine. And we don't know what happened to him, but it crashes the machine to where they cannot follow now. That's an interesting twist, like, because it is always like, well, why didn't they find a way to come with baby Kal-El? But in this story they kind of gave a reason. So here the Kents are finding it, and they name him Clark without the E, because her maiden name was Clark with an E. And even the dad is like, you're going to call him Clark Kent, like the guy from the comic book? And then as it goes through, it talks about how he didn't have any powers. He was just a normal kid growing up with no powers at all, period. Like invulnerability, nothing. Like, so here he like skins his knee or his elbow playing baseball. He was only like, he's athletic, but not super powerful or something. And then it cuts to essentially meeting up with the same time. Here comes the girlfriend dressed as a mermaid. He's in the Superboy costume. They're off to go have a costume party on the beach. Maybe that was a thing in the 80s for teenagers. I don't know. I wasn't a teenager in the 80s. First, he tries to fly, just joking around, and falls down. And then essentially we get the same panel of the Halley's Comet going by. I mentioned strange things happening. And then he does just take off and fly, and he meets Superman. It's kind of weird that they put this in the back. Maybe because since it was just another origin story, for anybody picking it up and flipping through the first couple of pages, leading with Superman was better. And then just like, okay, let's give him an origin. And I feel like there was a Superboy Prime mini series that came out that I've seen before. I've never had it or read it. It seems like when Superboy Prime, though, was, the big villain of Infinite Crisis, I remember that being a hot book. I don't remember this ever being a hot book then, but it was known that it was his first appearance, I guess, except by me. And, the price of it went way up. But anyway, that's like a nice little nostalgia piece of comic history for me. And another book I actually picked up recently, another DC Comics Presents, is this number 85. And I thought that was funny that, like, me as a kid was just a couple months missing out on this Alan Moore story. I don't know that I would have picked this up as a kid. It is a cool cover, but I wouldn't have known anything about Swamp Thing. And the thought of time travel, I think, is probably what attracted me to this. But it's still just kind of neat to think, like, here's number 85. This is 87. You got an Alan Moore Swamp Thing story that I was just a couple of months away from missing. But that's all I got for this one. Again, please if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, read your comics.